Is the full moon effect real? The world feels off-kilter nowadays, almost as if we live under a permanent full moon. The full moon effect is the concept that there are more crimes, mayhem, and hysteria on the night of a full moon. But is it true, or just folklore? I had to know the answer, so I dove headfirst down the lunar rabbit hole. Did you know in 18th century England, people on trial for murder were allowed to campaign for a lighter sentence on grounds of lunacy if the crime happened on the night of a full moon? Also, during various periods, psychiatric patients at London's Bethlehem Hospital were shackled and flogged as a preventative measure during various lunar phases. Pretty disgusting. All of this was done because of the moon, that bold, bright ball in the sky at night that both frightens and inspires people. It is the very error of the moon. She comes more near the earth than she was wont, and makes men mad. William Shakespeare, Othello. So what is the full moon anyway? The full moon occurs every 29.5 days. At least 14 nights per year we have one. It's a phase where from Earth, the moon appears to be fully illuminated for much of the night. It happens when the side of the moon that's facing the Earth is fully lit up from the sun. Here's a fun fact. There's no moonlight as such. It's sunlight reflecting off the moon. The moon borrows its light from the sun. The light we're seeing is a reflection of the sun. So the full moon's illuminated appearance is dependent upon its position as it orbits. As the positioning changes, the moon appears to have different faces. Basically, it looks different. And because these faces change regularly and predictably, many ancient cultures used the moon as a timepiece of sorts. It was their calendar in the sky, informing them of the cycles and seasons of life. And here's where things get woo-woo, or scientific, depending upon which label you identify with. The moon is the closest natural object to the Earth of its size. Because of its size, it exerts a gravitational force on large bodies of water, affecting the tides. It's this gravitational force that's thought to impact behavioral patterns. The idea of madness and mayhem reigning supreme during a full moon is as old as humankind. Sleepwalking, violence, insomnia, and all manner of strange behavior are attributed to the night of the full moon. If you speak with people working in emergency and police departments, ambulance, first responders, and other frontline workers, they'll often agree on the full moon lunacy effect in some form. In some cultures, warnings pass down for generations about the moon emitting energy that brought natural disasters, wars, outbreaks, and plagues. The English adjective pertaining to the moon is lunar, derived from the Latin word for the moon, luna. The Roman goddess Luna bore the name, and words like lunatic, loony, and more are all referring to states of madness. Greek philosopher Aristotle and the Roman historian Pliny the Elder suggested that the brain was the moistest organ in the body, and thereby most susceptible to the pernicious influences of the moon. It's also called the Transylvania effect or the lunar lunacy effect. But is it all just a myth? Here's what I've uncovered so far. Let's look at crime. Do crime rates increase? In 2007, several United Kingdom police departments, such as the one in the seaside town of Brighton, preemptively added extra officers on full moon nights to cope with what they presumed would be higher crime. Although the police force added additional staff, there were no reports that justified these cautious preparations. Now, you may be thinking, that's just anecdotal. I agree it is. And anecdotes do hold their value sometimes, but I wanted to get a bit more granular and to look at the data. So in terms of crime, I looked at 6 studies in various countries. These were studies that were observational analyses. They were looking across years to see if there were any corroboration. Is there any data that supports this concept of the full moon effect on, and that it impacts crime, that there's an increase in crime And the results of that, the 6 studies that I looked at, 2 of them showed that there were impacts on people's behavior. There was an increase in crime during the full moon, and 4 of the 6 didn't show that there was any impact. There was nothing conclusive that came from the analysis of the data. All 6 of the studies are linked in the article that goes along with this video. If you're curious about the studies, you can click through on the link below. So that was crime. So then I moved on to mental states. I wanted to know, is there any data that supports the full moon effect having an impact on people's mental state? Is there an effect on mental health states? In a tiny study of just 17 people, researchers found patients rapidly cycled between a state of hyperactive mania and depression during a full moon. But being such a small study, it's hard to draw any solid conclusions. I didn't find anything else conclusive, so I rolled on to sleep disturbances and insomnia. Does the full moon cause insomnia? Let's look at the results of a small study in 2013 of 33 people who spent the night in a sleep laboratory. Even though they were in a lab and obviously couldn't perceive whether the moon was full or not, study participants rated their sleep quality as 15% lower when there was a full moon. But again, it's unreasonable to come to any solid conclusions with such a small number of study participants. But what's interesting is that I found a few other studies with results showing a full moon effect on REM, rapid eye movement, that phase of sleep, and overall quality of sleep. So although the studies were small, sleep seems to be one of the only things conclusively impacted by the full moon. But of course, again, we have to take into consideration that these studies, all of them that I found, were fairly small. How about the full moon's effect on other species? Well, an observational analysis of data from the Bradford Royal Infirmary from 1997 to 1999 showed an increase of dog and other animal bites during the full moon. The incidence of animal bites rose significantly at the time of a full moon. But in contrast to the Bradford data, another observational analysis of data, but by the Australian public hospitals, concluded dog bites are no more frequent on full moons than any other time of the month. So, after digging around on the topic, we're back to square one. Several conflicting studies with nothing concrete. Researchers across the globe have come up empty-handed when attempting to validate the full moon claims of mayhem and madness on a large scale. But what about the proclamations by police officers and emergency room staff and other frontline workers who say that during full moons they're busier and the night seems to be wilder? Is it all hogwash? Are they imagining it? Are they just making it all up? Or is it just a case of the confirmation bias, where they're seeing what they believe? This type of bias means that if it's a full moon and you believe in the lunacy effect, you'll be more apt to notice strange behavior and to chalk it up to the moon. Others believe there's more light in the sky, and so it draws out more people go out, hang out, and that more people that are out and about increases the chance of incidents occurring. Of course, these are all just people's theories. I haven't found anything to back that up. But wait, before we finish, what if there's no modern data? Because the effect has lessened over the years. Did you know that the moon is drifting further away from the Earth? Our moon is drifting further from the Earth by a few centimeters every year. I'm far from a scientist or astronomer. I'm just a moon nerd and I love researching stuff. But I am left wondering if the effect of the moon on the Earth and its inhabitants is lessening due to the slow drift. But I have no idea. These are all just interesting ponderings. One day, maybe I'll go down that rabbit hole to see if there is anything supporting it, but I doubt so. My lunar rabbit hole explorations led me in one big inconclusive circle, but still, I can't deny any person or group's stories about what they've witnessed during a full moon. Although anecdotal, I have no evidence, proof, or justification to contradict what they claim they experienced, especially because those experiences seem to be worldwide and for thousands of years. I also have a deep respect for cultures, rituals, and beliefs patterns. How about you? What do you think? Do you have any strange stories or patterns that you've witnessed during a full moon?